Welcome to Living a Life by Design. It's the journey back to you and living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. Did you know your accountability and possibility is by design? God designed a phenomenal life for you, gave you the gift of choice. Esther helps empower you to discover and pursue the purpose that is already in you. Are you ready to look at yourself and see your future? Then get back to what is really important in life and get in alignment with your true self. Stay tuned to Living a Life by Design. Journey back to you and start living 365 days of purpose with your host, Esther Graham. It all starts now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Life by Design podcast. I'm so super excited that you have chosen to join me here or today once again with my very special guest, Mr. Bert Wright. Y'all know he's Mr. Wright, and just a couple weeks ago it was him and his beautiful wife Eskism. But today I just wanted Bert to talk to us about money. You know, the title of our show is Money Matters. And Bert is a guru when it comes to not just sales, but also managing your money, investing your money. And so just want him to share some wisdom with all of you. And please feel free to ask questions, any questions. Remember, y'all, this is a dialogue and not a monologue. And so once again, here is Bert Wright. And Bert, I'm going to ask you to reintroduce yourself, and then let's get started on our juicy conversation.
Well, thank you, Esther, once again for having me on your show again. It's my pleasure to be on the show as well. My backstory really has been I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and with mom and dad both being entrepreneurs growing up. Went from entrepreneurship, got into teaching straight out of college, and realized that a teaching career was going to be the end all be all for my lifestyle. Got into sales, specifically in the financial services industry, and been there for about almost 12 years. And I just love serving and helping people talk about money, plan for entrepreneurship, talk about sales. That's really my background, and I love just being a servant for others.
What I love about this conversation about money is that, money, of course, it's not the end all, but it does give us access to wonderful memories, to creating the life that we want. And yet money many times has negative connotations or could have negative results or even the lack thereof. And
Mhm.
so I think many of us struggle with money, in terms of our worthiness, in terms of, do we have enough? Do we not have enough? Should we be making this much? How do you get it? And just so many things can be packaged in this conversation. But I want to start off, Bert. Tell us, what is money? What is money?
Man, there are so many levels to that question of what is money. I mean, there's almost this metaphysical aspect. We hear that money is energy, right? You attract money to you. You can create money. Money can be manifested, which I believe is one aspect of what money is. But on a more tactical level, which I believe money really is, and I heard this definition years ago from a mentor of mine, that money represents units of choice. Let me say that
Money
again.
represents what? Can you say that
Money
again?
represents units of choice.
Units of choice.
Units
Love that.
of choice. So money, equates to how many choices you get to make, right? And I think oftentimes when we think about money, we don't realize that really how you live your life, sometimes is in direct proportion to the amount of money you have. What restaurant you go to, what doctor you see, what
Yeah.
school you send your kids to, what school you go to, where you shop, where you eat, different things. So when I say money on one level is energy, on the other hand, also money represents choices at the same time. And the two together ideally will help you create a lifestyle that you truly desire in many ways.
Yeah. And as you say that, it represents choices, it's energy. And but many times money is also that mindset shift,
Yep.
right? How we see money, how we feel about money, how we use money. It's a mindset shift as well. Can you go into a little bit about that? Let me give a background to that just a little bit. So everyone knows, I'm a Bible girl, I like to say, and of course I read the scriptures. Well, there's all the time, but there's over 800 scriptures on just money. So money obviously is very important. But what happens, Bert, is sometimes we misrepresent what it says. So many times people think, well, if you're believing all of that, you have to be poor, you have to be this. No, 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 no. That's not how it goes. But money is something that's so important that I just believe that God just wanted to mention, listen, you need to pay attention. It talks about investments and how you invest your money, how you use money, how you see money. And so it is very much a mindset shift. We often hear, money don't fall on trees,
Right.
or every time I get money in my hand, it leaves.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm speaking with, that mindset shift. When you say that we can attract money, because we can attract money to us, and many times we don't, because we have that mindset that says money don't fall on trees, or every time it comes I lose it, or this used to be mine. I'm not a good money manager.
Mm-hmm.
Used to be mine, because simply because of, I was nervous about money.
Right.
Make sense? Am I making sense? So can we talk about that just a little?
Yeah, I love your integration of the spiritual aspects of money. I'm gonna first start spiritual and then the second go natural, because I think I was talking to some colleagues of mine, and it was such a phenomenal revelation that I had to have myself, that when, and I think, okay, let's talk about, God and spiritual life in this aspect here, that when God created Adam and Eve, he put them in the Garden of Eden. I think it's very important for listeners to understand that, because God's natural level of experience for man is abundance. The Garden of Eden is a space of abundance and overflow. And so it wasn't until we entered this space of temptation where we began to focus on lack. You think about it, think about it in the aspect of the Garden of Eden. There was one tree you were not supposed to eat of, right? Which
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
in the natural sense would represent lack, right? And so we were tricked to focus on lack and to focus on abundance in many ways. So, given that perspective, we talk about mindset. What I love to tell people when people ask me, Bert, what's the number one way for me to make more money or to increase my wealth? I say your biggest money making tool really is your mindset. It is those
yeah,
6 inches between your ears, whatever. It isn't about an investment product, it isn't about stocks, it isn't about bonds, it isn't about annuities or life insurance. Really, the biggest tool you have to make money is what you have between your two ears, and realize that at the core of who we are as a spiritual being, our natural state is abundance. So I think for many of us, we get caught in believing that poverty is closer to piety. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Oftentimes,
yeah, yeah.
realizing
So
that
that,
really is just some misbelieving old ideas that don't serve us any well. I'll share this
yeah,
quick story. When I was at your event a couple weeks ago, and one of your guests asked me to kind of place a person and set a person aside. Certain old ideas is that you would never put a woman's purse on the ground, because really there was no place to put a purse. And I said, I apologize. I have to put your purse on the ground. The person was very quick to say, that is old limiting beliefs. I don't believe where my purse is placed doesn't matter. Wealth will still be attracted to me and maintaining my lifestyle. So I think to your conversation there, Esther, that abundance is our natural birthright. God made us in a space of the Garden of Eden where abundance was what we had every given right to earn.
yeah. That's it. It's our natural lifestyle. We have every given right. We are so worthy of it, and we get to choose. We choose how we live that out. And when we get money, how we use money and what we actually do with money.
Right.
So, as we're looking at that mindset shift, let's just briefly talk about then what is the difference between money and wealth?
Woo! This is probably one of my favorite areas of distinction. We may not have time before we get, before we go on break, but I would say money is something we can always create. Wealth is measured in time. Let me say that
Ooh,
again. Money is based on something we have the physical capacity to create, because it's everlasting, right? Wealth is created in time. So what does that mean? How wealthy you are is based on how long can you maintain your standard of living without having to work again. How long can you maintain your standard of living without having to work again? That's how we talk about wealth. We talk about generational wealth. It's about passing on a similar lifestyle to your kids and your kids' kids, right? As an inheritance, as the Bible says, right? That's how I define wealth. Wealth is measured in time. Rich is measured in money or assets. That's how I just tell you the difference there too.
I was going to say, I love the difference because many times, we talk about being rich and there is a difference between being rich and even being wealthy. One of the things I love to say, well, I joke about it all the time, especially when my children were younger. Do you remember the Cosby Show?
Right,
Right.
right,
And so do you remember when Vanessa, was feeling stressed out because her friends that she was going to school with was not living or did not have, let's say, families like she had.
right,
And she told her mom, it's just not fair that we have so much money that we're rich. And, this is what she's telling her mom and dad. And I remember they said to her, you're not rich, and then they said, rich isn't when you work for your money. That's when your money works for you.
right,
And so that's wealth. When your money works for you, and then you're creating a legacy of how you're going to live that lifestyle out.
right, right.
Yeah,
Yes.
wonderful. We're going to take a quick break and we'll come back with some more powerful, juicy conversation with Bert Wright in just a few seconds. Welcome back, everyone, to Life by Design podcast with my guest, Mr. Bert Wright. And we are talking today about money matters. Listen, if you're tuned in right now, please ask your questions, talk back to us. I am checking the Facebook page. So when you see me looking down, I'm looking to see if there's any comments that's going on that we could just ask your questions. Also, if you're looking at the replay, because we will post this podcast, don't hesitate to even comment and ask your questions in the replay. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Now, Bert, we ended the conversation speaking about rich and being wealthy, and you spoke about really the difference. Can you just talk just a little bit about that again? And then let's just talk about what limits us. What's our limiting beliefs when it
Right.
comes to money?
Yeah, so I mentioned before the break that being rich versus being wealthy is really defined by two main factors. Being rich is based on money, how many assets you can attain, right? Whether it's stocks, bonds, portfolios, real estate, different things. It's about what type of things you've attained in your life. Wealth is how much can those assets help sustain and maintain your current standard of living. Let me say it again. Wealth is about maintaining your current standard of living because theoretically, let's say somebody makes 100 grand a year, just hypothetically, but then they lose their job and they can't sustain their standard of living for more than a month. So they may be rich in income, but they're poor in wealth because when they lose their job, they are now struggling in so many ways, right? Somebody could be making 50 grand a year, lose their job, and can't sustain their standard of living for a year. So technically, they may not be as rich, but they're definitely far wealthier. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes into far as how do we deal with limiting beliefs between the difference, one is recognizing that rich and wealth are not one the same. That's probably one of the biggest hurdles we have to get over in many ways. But more importantly, understand that the key to going from rich to wealth is nothing more than a mental shift and realizing how can you better leverage your genius, your resources, your point of view. One of the reasons why people struggle with being rich on the way to being wealthy is that they realize that oftentimes in today's society, we really are trading time for dollars. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? We've heard the phrase that, time is money, right? Which is a very old limited belief. Time is not money. We make that very clear. Time is not. You can always create more money. You cannot create more time. So for a lot of people who are poor or less than financially successful, they struggle with creating riches and wealth because they realize they felt in their heads they're having to give their time is so costly to create this level of rich and wealth. That's what I write. So rich people, wealthy people create wealth through their creativity, through their ingenuity, through their genius space, what I write. Poor people trade in their time to get rich. That's one of the biggest difference I would tell people always. So think about how can you really shift your mindset? Because I say this to some clients. If you want to get wealthy, you have to understand the paperwork so you can put your paper to work. Let me say it again.
I like that. I
You
like
have
that.
to understand the paperwork so you can put your paper to work. And that mental shift is really huge as far as creating a wealthy lifestyle versus a rich lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah. A good example when you're given the definition is I don't know, it was all over the news, I believe, that the Actors Guild is on strike, right? The writers are on
Uh-huh.
strike. And so there was a star who was a Grammy Award winner. It spoke about they have to sell their home,
Right,
right? Because of the strike, they're not getting paid. And so they literally are they've been living from paycheck to paycheck. And when
right,
I heard that, I thought, that's just, I couldn't connect it.
right.
Understand what I mean? And so that's the difference in exactly what you're saying. Because when I listened to this particular star, I thought, that doesn't make sense to me that, now that there's a strike, that you've got to sell your home
Mm-hmm.
and that you're living paycheck to paycheck. And my
Right,
whole thought was, so what have you been doing
right.
financially all of this time?
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Esther, but
Oh, you're
what I
good.
didn't share also, as a former school teacher, the harsh reality is that financial literacy is not taught in most of our schools. Obviously knowing your background experiences were there too. So it's almost sadly more common than we care to admit. That's because you make 100 grand a year or $1 million a year does not mean you have higher level of financial literacy or financial education, right? So somebody really could be making $1 million a year and be spending $1 million in $1, which means they technically are broke, right? And so in your particular example, it's sad reality when somebody you think is doing very well, at least on an outward appearance, is really broke or dare I say poor, right? Because they
Yeah.
may have all the external symbols of doing very well, but they have none of the internal foundation of being wealthy and being successful, right? You know what I'm
Can
saying?
you say that again? The external symbols.
People can oftentimes can have the external symbols of
Yeah.
doing very well or being abundant, but they lack the internal foundation to be able to sustain themselves and sustain their lifestyles. You know what I'm saying? I don't ever, and so in my background, my industry, I've sat across individuals who come to meetings with me who have the name brand purses, the name brand custom suits, and there are hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and they're broke.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
on the other hand, I saw across individuals that may make 75 grand a year. They come in very humble and they have millions of dollars in retirement accounts. So I don't ever assume that external symbols indicate wealth and financial abundance, right? I've learned they are not, they don't coincide with one another, unfortunately, right? Yeah.
Let's just go just a little bit deeper. And so this may be like really touchy, but do you think it's also a cultural thing? Exactly what you spoke about, the outward appearance,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Is it, speak to the cultural aspect? Because I think, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about all of these different things, and not just people I know, but just situations. And I think that many times it's very cultural.
Right. Well, there's a question, there's an issue of style versus substance, right? It sounds cliche, but sometimes I may be stepping on toes here, Esther, but I'll say this. I think for certain communities, and I talk about our communities oftentimes, because we've been a community that's operated in lack for centuries, um, that the hunger to make up for lost time is so strong that
Mm,
we would choose style versus substance, which basically means we would choose more of the showy stuff, the name brand stuff, versus saying, my biggest pet peeve always is, I don't care if you have a Louis Vuitton bag, but yeah, if there's nothing in your purse, you better not find a Kmart bag, which I don't think Kmart's even around anymore, a Kmart purse, and have a fat wallet than having a Louis Vuitton purse and an empty wallet, right? So I think part of it is cultural. We are definitely living in a very consumer-driven world and society. So by default, we are taught more to consume than we are taught more to save. And so yeah, it's a yeah, we can go really deep there, but yeah, I'll say that.
what do you think about the phrase "fake it till you make it"?
Faith it into the make it, because that point is about the internal conversation we have with ourselves and how we are going to keep going forward in a conversation. So, an example, let's say somebody's trying to save for retirement, buy a home, right? So, faith it till you make it means that I'm gonna keep putting money set aside because someday I'm gonna have enough for a down payment to buy a house. That's faith in it till you make it. Faking it is like, yeah, I got a new job, but I'm gonna still buy brand new clothes. I'm gonna buy the newest car because I want to show success initially for the approval of others, right? So that's how I look at that.
So faith it till you make it. I love that. I love that. Versus fake it till you make it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's really good. So, Bert, so tell me then, because you've alluded to, having someone
Mhm.
um to mentor you,
Right.
to coach you, having someone that can teach you about investments. Tell me about the value of that. And right before we'll come back to it, we're going to go to break in about a minute, y'all. But
Mhm.
then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that because I think as we're having this conversation, no
Mhm.
matter where you are in your life right now, whether financially or mentally, wherever you are, the importance of having the information, the value of having a mentor. I like to say a mentor, a motivator, a coach,
Mhm.
someone that's going to teach you about investment, just having that trustful
Right.
person. So I'd like to talk about the importance of that.
The biggest value of a mentor slash coach or professional is that you get to leverage and borrow their wisdom and their expertise, and you get to compress time frames because somebody who has taken the time to become educated, an expert, a professional in a particular, say in the space of financial services or financial planning, they have a level of competency that you can borrow versus you having to do it yourself. So I would
Right.
say the biggest value of a coach is you can borrow somebody else's competency, probably more than anything else. Yeah.
When earlier I said that one of my mental, my limited belief was I'm not a good money manager. Remember I said that? And so because I had that as a limited belief for myself, many times when you have that belief, you manifest it. So what I did is I knew that was a limited belief I had, and I got books, I got an investor, I got someone to coach me. I did all of that. First of all, to change my limited belief so I could
Mhm.
see that I can manage money. And then to teach me and coach me through the tools and what are good investments, what's not, and what is it that you need to do here, especially and I say this because so many that are listening and will be listening, they're entrepreneurs, they're leaders in
Mhm.
whatever industry they're in, but yet still we struggle with that mindset, that limited belief that we could do this ourselves or we can't do it, but we don't go find that external person to
Right.
really walk us through. So let's when we come back from our break, everyone, we're going to talk about the value of having that that mentor, that motivator, that coach, that investment broker to help you manage your money.
Mhm.
Right back in a few minutes. And we're back once again on the Life by Design podcast with my special guest, Bert Wright. We're going to continue our conversation on money. So I'm just going to let's go, Bert. Finish talking to us.
Yeah, so
Teach.
we had some good conversation during the break about coaching and the value of professional assistance. I tell anybody, start with where you are, right? And so the first thing is you must have the desire and the mind to want to improve your finances. I think we need to understand that we can't dismiss the value of that. I think oftentimes I think we're going to go from where we are to get an advisor, but I always say let's start with the most important step. Do you truly have a desire? Are you sick and tired of your finances being in a hot mess, right? Because if you're not, it doesn't matter how many books you read, how many YouTube videos you watch, what type of professional advice you paid for. If you're not in the space of being willing and having an ear to hear, like to say in the church, right? It doesn't really matter. Um, and then from there, moving to where you can start with. So, are you at a space? Do you want to hire a professional, help? You can, or if not, you start with certain books. I mean, if it's okay, I can recommend a few books I always think are good books to start with. One is called The Psychology of Money. I think it's a very good one to start with as well there too. We've always heard that, one of the granddaddies of them all is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so those are good two primers to start with, as you're beginning your journey about money and money thought processes. I would even start with the Bible. I'm saying? Let's revisit how we see the Bible as a book of poverty and a book of abundance. I'm saying? And not see it as a this belief that to be more godly is to be more impoverished, but to be more godly is to be more abundant, right? I'm saying? It's been said he came to give us life so we can live more abundantly. Let's move in that space. I'm saying? Let's understand the value of giving. That sounds churchy, but understand the value of giving so we can receive. I'm saying? When you tithe, in, it's about the act of giving and the act of expectations, what I write, so you can receive back in many ways, right? So I would say start there, and then depending on where you are in your journey, then it may be of value to move into professional assistance and an advisor, a coach, different things, and they're different. Let me explain the difference between the two, what are right, so people understand this. A coach may be somebody who is taking some trainings, who may have gone through their own personal journey of financial rescue themselves, and they can give you some guidance, but they can't necessarily manage your money or put things in place. That's the difference. A financial advisor is somebody who probably has gone through the same type of coaching training, but they're licensed and regulated by the state and the federal government, which allows them to actually manage your money and put it into certain vehicles or assets and different things. So you can use both. There's no right or wrong. I think it depends on where you are professionally, where you are in your life, but start with the desire to want to improve your money and your lifestyle, and find a support network. That's probably the second biggest thing. Somebody who's on the same journey, because money really is a very personal and private conversation.
Yes.
In my household, we didn't talk about money a whole lot, and we considered it rude to talk about money with other people and how you live your life. And oftentimes, talking about cultural, especially in our culture, like money was never talked about. It was just like, hey, we just got to a family gathering, and that was it, right? So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So suppose someone is saying that, well, I really don't have any money right now in terms to hire a coach or to get an investor or get a mentor. I don't have that. Where can they start? Because you said start where you are. So I know my daughter, for example, she started when she made a decision that she was going to do some investments. And so she downloaded, I think it was Robin Hood or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Right.
she began to look at that. But so what are some of the things that if you're just at zero?
Right. So I would say, we live in such an incredible times now. Things that maybe you and I didn't have growing up. Esther, people nowadays have at their fingertips this thing called a smartphone, right, or a dumb phone, depending how you look at it, right, in the face, right. And so, um, the library provides a lot of free books on financial literacy, financial education. YouTube University is more than a notion. Start there as well. You can download apps like TD Ameritrade, Mint.com, MINT, Mint.com. There's another website called feedthepig.org. So they give you these different calculators and tools you can use to start educating yourself on what does it mean to plan your financial future, whatever it is, paying off debt, saving for a home, buying life insurance, planning for retirement, creating a legacy for your lifestyle. So there, you don't have to hire a financial advisor. Oftentimes, I tell people that may not always be your best start. More often than not, educate yourself because you
It
want to
sounds
have
like educating yourself is where you should first start.
yeah, educate yourself first, because then when you come to somebody who's a professional, you have some context of what to talk about in your conversations.
Mm.
Um, I say this respectfully, to all my colleagues. I don't think all advisors are created equal. I think some are more sales driven, or I'll use the word commission driven, than mission driven. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when you're not properly educated and you come across a commission driven advisor, you could be misled down a road you didn't plan to go into it, all right? You wake up 5, 10 years later. And the problem with money management, the bad advice you won't know until 10 or 15 years down the road, and you can't make up time. You can always make up money, you can't make up time. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
and so now no advisor is perfect. I'm very clear. No advisor is perfect, and no advice is perfect. But however, if you have a much more educated perspective, you know how to get the best advice. Yeah, it can best support you some kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So you start with education.
Correct.
And the education is really the foundation that you spoke about earlier, especially when you're starting at ground zero. You
Correct.
start by educating yourself. And then when you begin to look even online at the
Mhm.
tools, the free tools that you mentioned, it still starts with education because you need to
Right.
also understand what those tools are about and choosing the best one that's for you.
Right.
So one of the things I know, Bert, that you do outside of being a financial advisor, outside of being a coach, a mentor, a motivator, um, a former teacher, is that, as I like to say, you're a guru in sales.
Hmm.
You've built sales, you've trained sales people. Um, And I think that as people are listening to this podcast, many of us who are on here, they're entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
So then my question to you is, what's the best question that a leader, period, wherever they are, can ask you when it comes to sales and money question and money management? So for example, if I am going to
Hmm.
look to find let's say a sales coordinator
Yeah.
or a financial system, what's the best question that I can ask?
So I would actually ask that person, I would kind of turn back around and ask that person a question first, um, which is what is their desires or what is their pain point when it comes to finances or money? Now, because that's going to determine the path we go down. Um, I like to ask people this question also. I said, what is the best motivational book you've ever read? Go ahead, Esther. Can you think of one? Esther, what's the best motivation? What's the best motivational book you've ever read? Can you think of one?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, my first would be the Bible.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because that, I mean, it just motivates me because I think it just has so many life principles that I could apply to my life. And then the other one, motivational book, gosh, it's hard to pick one because Out of Control and Loving It would be one,
Uh-huh.
by Lisa Bevere. Um,
So I would say this. So I agree the Bible is probably the number one motivational book.
yeah.
But I said uh, closely followed the second number one book of motivation I tell people is probably your checkbook.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
so I share that because when people come to me, I ask like, "What's your motivation? What does this mean to you to achieve this financial plan or increase your sales revenue, whatever?" Right? Because obviously, it isn't just a one size fit all for everybody. Some people may just want to say to buy a house. Some people may want to have sales revenue so that they can hire a new staff member. Some people may want to grow their business. So when it comes to sales and or financial planning, I always ask, "What is your goals? What do you want to accomplish?" Right? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I'm very clear, I'm talking about going back to mission versus commission, then I may not be the best fit for that person, right? And
Right.
so I think people need to understand, can this person best accommodate what they truly want? You know what I'm saying? Because if they're about trying to get the sell first, this advice I'll get to any of your clients, people listening, when they're vetting a professional or a coach or advisor is ask, do you feel they really have your best interests at heart when it's all said and done?
Right.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. We are about to take another break, I believe. And so we'll be right back in just a few minutes, and where Bert will share how you can connect with him, one. And number two, he's going to give you some steps that you can implement ASAP in your finances. and welcome back to the Life by Design podcast with my guest, Mr. Bert Wright. And so we're going to go into our last segment. So tell us a little about not well, let's wait for what you do till after this, but give us some steps. What can people do right now to implement and change their finances?
So yeah, Esther. So I love acronyms. I think it's one of my superpowers. I create acronyms just on the cuff, and so I'm gonna leave your audience with this acronym to help empower them as they move forward. So the phrase is check your face. Face is an acronym. So check your face. So FACE. So the F stands for perform a financial audit of all your entire income, revenue, household, family, income, debt, anything with our rights. So perform a financial audit of your entire financial lifestyle, whatever it is. Money coming in, money coming out, different things. If it's just you, it's just you yourself. If you have a spouse, you and your spouse, you have kids, that's what that too. So A stands for assess your assets. So that may include things like what does it mean to do how much assets do you have? Do you not have any assets? Do you have a retirement plan? Do you have what's your debt to income ratio? Do you own a home? Do you have a car? Different things. So those things all kind of come into play. And so that may include help you strategize your next steps. And C stands for check your credit and check your connections. Um, we understand that credit, we live in a world that's often driven by credit. And so how much debt you are currently carrying, how much debt do you not want to carry? That could be student loans, car loans, home loans, different things. And what's your game plan to pay it off? The connections part of the C is just as important because oftentimes we assume that it's always about how much capital we have. Sometimes we don't realize social capital is just as important about forming financial well-being as is money capital, right? So who do you know that can support you, right? Who's your support network in many ways? And then E is for educate and empower yourself. So how can you educate yourself on your financial well-being, your lifestyle, so that you feel more empowered? So check your face, financial audits, assess your assets, check your credit connections, and E, educate and empower yourself. Those 4 tips, I think if anybody uses those as a guideline and a guidepost, we'll be better off in the future going forward. Yeah.
I 100% agree. I was writing them down because, again, everyone, this is a part of living a life by design and not in default. When you can check your face, then
Mm-hmm.
you are moving into living a life by design and
Mm-hmm.
you're moving out of default, especially in your financial area. So
Right.
now tell us, how can we connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can literally find my name, Bert Wright, on LinkedIn. Send me a message, send me a connection request. If you happen to watch the show and say, hey, Bert, I saw you on the show or heard your podcast, just, hey, send me a message. Then I will know to accept your connection request. And we can go with you. You can send me a message. We can find time to schedule a call for a complimentary discovery call and go from there as well. So those you don't know, so people ask, well, how come we don't have a website? Because of the regulations I operate under, a website requires more compliance. So I find it easier to send everybody to LinkedIn than to a website. So that's why I don't have a website. If anybody was asking, why just go to your website? Well, because I have about 3 or 4 different licenses, and every license requires a compliance review. So I'm very mindful to stay in compliance because I don't want to go to jail or anything.
I don't blame. We don't want you to go to jail. We don't want to be sued.
Right, yeah. So exactly.
Yeah. So guys, what I also want to say about Bert, if you are an entrepreneur and you are right now building your sales team or you're building your business, Bert would be an excellent person to connect with. I have used him. I am using him and it has just been phenomenal. And if you want to see where your finances will go up, your sales will go up and everything that you're doing, then you definitely want to connect with to Bert. I know you haven't talked about that, Bert, but I just think that what you are doing in the world in
Mhm,
terms of training salespeople, in terms of working with leaders in
mhm,
building their company and even that financial forecasting what, the financial future of the company, I think it's so important what you're doing. So I just want to mention that. So make sure that you are on LinkedIn. And
Mhm.
if you are, that you connect with Bert, ask him questions, find out, get an appointment, schedule an appointment to talk with him. And of course, if you need a reference, if he says to you, where did you hear about it? Then say, I heard about it on the Life by Design podcast, right? So then he'll know to talk to you.
Right. Yeah. And one quick thing about that, Esther, I think sales for many entrepreneurs, I believe, should be the number one job description, because your job is to help create revenue for the company, right? Until you can offload that task to somebody else, right? So I've been fortunate to have Esther as one of my clients, and we've learned that just the conversation itself it comes from a space of service, right? How do
Yeah.
you serve our clients? How do you serve the people that I think that are assigned to us to serve? You know what I'm saying? I like to say that we should love the people and use the money to make a difference in the world, not love the money and use the people. So
That
it's like
right
this
there.
makes we don't get it mixed up. You know what I'm saying? And so in the sales conversations, you understand that we're here to provide a service and provide a solution. And if you combine the two together, then your revenue will always be consistent. Because I believe that what has been ordained will be sustained if you operate with the right mindset, right, in many different ways. Yeah.
And I think that's what I love the most about you, really, is because I'm a person, I believe in service, and I don't do sales.
Yeah.
And but what you helped me to do was really let's just say raise my level, increase
Mm-hmm.
um my service,
Right.
right? And where I felt comfortable. So I want to say it's like sales with compassion. It's
Yes.
because one of my things, and I think it's many people out there, you walk into a sales room, or you walk and you just hate that person to come up and say
Right.
what you like. You just hate it, right? And you also don't want to feel sold to, like if you're
Right.
interested in the money more than I am in you. And for me, it was always, no, I'm more about the service. And
Right.
so that's what I like about you. That's what I love, is that you focus on the service, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just a person with integrity.
Right.
And so and just in my own personal business as an entrepreneur, just what you've done working with me and working with my team of one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's doing great.
And it's just been great. And so if you are that entrepreneur, invest in getting Bert's assistant, his advice, which is just great wisdom. So thank you so much, Bert, for sharing. I just appreciate you coming on again. Last week it was about, relationships and just being put together. This just lets y'all know just how much he's doing in the world. Or not last week, a couple weeks ago. And now, talking about money, which, any money questions, it's like, okay, let me ask Bert.
Well, Esther, I also want to say thank you. It's one thing to say, we've worked together, but I also feel that we have a good friendship together as well there too. And so, when I can support friends that are doing big things in the world, it's an easy yes. You know what I'm saying? And so what I would tell your audience is that what you do in the world is phenomenal, and you're a beacon. We've heard the phrase, you are a lighthouse in this current world of darkness, right? And I think that needs to be honored and celebrated. So I give you your flowers as well. And I think doing a big difference. And I'm gonna say on the air, John, what's up? Good to see you, John. And I'll go from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bert. And listen, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back on August 25th, once again, with a powerful podcast with Dr. Delicia Haynes, who is phenomenal. She, again, is going to speak about how do we take care of our mental wellness, so we could always be mentally well. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube, and I will see you again on the Life by Design podcast. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and every other social media that you can think of. Just look for Esther Graham, or look for Festa della Donna, or the Life by Design community on Facebook. Take care. God bless you. Thanks again, Bert.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Living a Life by Design, the journey back to you, and living 365 days of purpose with host Esther Graham. Listen or watch live every second and fourth Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com. Discover that what is possible is already in you. God designed a phenomenal life for you. Esther helps you ignite that energy behind your personal journey for a deeper joy and peace, living 365 days of purpose. For more information on living a life by design, visit fddwomen.com.